Okay. And this is my punchline. The last 3 weeks define what I would call, in quote, tyranny of contradictions. On one hand, President Uhuru Kenyatta was launching mega infrastructure projects that will or have cost the taxpayer billions of shillings, from the express highway from JKIA to Westlands to the Nairobi-Suswa SGR line, whose definition as a rail heading to nowhere totally upset President Uhuru Kenyatta last week. But on the other hand, the number of people perishing in floods increased to 29 at the last count today, and it could be higher. Make no mistake, last year people died in floods, and shortly thereafter in drought. The previous years too. It is simply an annual ritual. Even now, once the flooding season is over and drought strikes, Kenyans will unfortunately once again lose their lives. Some did last year, despite billions of shillings being allocated to alleviate hunger pangs. And yes, even next year, drought will claim some more lives. Why? Because, as a country, we never seem to learn. Droughts and floods are not exactly an emergency. One can predict these situations with almost 100% certainty. How will the mega projects mooted and launched by the government make sense to a hungry person? How is the taxpayer supposed to clap at a shiny railway line to Suswa at a time when he or she is drowning in floods? Is proper leadership not about getting the basics right? As an altar boy emeritus, I'm reminded of the profound words in the book of Luke, chapter 16, verses 10. The New International Version records, and I quote, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." And make no mistake, Kenya is a country of immense resources. Parliament even allowed the executive to borrow up to 9 trillion shillings, nearly the size of the entire economy, ostensibly to finance mega projects that will supposedly spur economic growth, attract investors, create employment opportunities, and enable millions of qualified young people to showcase their skills. But how will all this be realized in a country where patients cannot find the basic medicine in public facilities? Thousands of children are still learning in deplorable classrooms, some even under trees. How do we have magnificent multi-million shilling train stations with only muddy and dusty roads to service them? Surely we are not expecting travelers to fly into the new railway stations to catch the train. What are our priorities? What is my point? It is the little things that matter. If and when the government gets the simplest and most basic things right, only then will the mega and grand projects start to make sense to the country's population. Otherwise, President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda will not only drown in the floods of pessimism, but ultimately starve from the drought of support from a majority of Kenyans. That is my forecast, and that is my punchline.